Hey there, everybody. Welcome to our morning edition of Big Brother 22 All-Stars Live Feed Spoilers. This is day 5, and with that, we have made it to the other side of the veto competition. Now, the strategy really begins, and we're going to start seeing campaigns. We're going to start seeing gameplay really go down, and we're going to talk a lot about that veto aftermath, some of the conversations that could be fueling the game coming up. But before we dive too much into this, and there's a couple fun things in here as well, if you do like this video, give us a like, subscribe, hit that notification bell, and if you do want to support us more, just check those links in the description to the store and also our Patreon, where we have live chats at the end of every month and some other benefits as well.
Okay, so we're going to just sort of recap kind of where we all stand with everything. So
Yeah.
we have Cody as the HOH, we've had Kevin, we've had Keisha, they're on the block, and
Yes.
Enzo has the veto. That is what has happened. So, as predicted by pretty much everybody in the fandom, Enzo has already told Cody that he will not use the veto, and this is a surprise to no one.
Yeah, like I think there may was something like Enzo was sort of joking, like, oh, we're gonna get Tyler out this week now, but it was this is not a shock to anyone.
No, and the thing that I think I'm a little more surprised by is I thought there would be a lot more fallout from Kevin that, Enzo's probably not going to use it, because I feel like he's got to kind of know a little bit. And that maybe, I was wondering if Enzo was going to make a deal with Cody to kind of say, listen, he picked me as house guest choice. I am now sitting on this veto. He has to be the person that goes, because if not, then it's kind of like a little mini betrayal.
Yeah,
But that didn't happen.
It didn't, and there hasn't been that much conversation about it, at least not yet. I wonder if this really is just sort of a thing where Enzo may just feel like he was chosen because he stinks in competitions usually, and he may just not feel like, you know what, I don't really owe Kevin anything, so I'm just going to do what the HOH would want me to do, because probably having more loyalty from his HOH and possibly the minions of the HOH may be better in the long run than having just the support of Kevin.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, you want to kind of situate yourself well, and right now Cody is in power. You don't need to piss him off. You don't need to piss off that whole group, and Enzo has done the right thing. Although I think Enzo winning it all, he didn't really need to do that, but at the same time, him doing that and then not using it has helped.
Yeah, it'll buy him, I think, some loyalty for now, and maybe that's something he feels like he needs because he's an old school player. He doesn't necessarily know these people before, and predictably, he's already kind of like trying to play up the, oh, we're from the same spot, like the geographic stuff with, Cody, and he's even done that with Nicole a little bit.
And I get that. That can work. I mean, we're watching AGT right now, and there's somebody on there who's from Toronto, and they have a Morkie like we do, and I'm already like, yeah, go Roberta.
See,
It happens.
It does, and that's why there's always a part of me that like wants to be inclined to try to root for the Texas house guest, but then a lot of the Texas house guests end up not being people I want to root for. I will not name names, but you probably know.
Yeah.
All right. So, anyway, Cody has already sort of had a conversation with Kevin, and Kevin's not an idiot. He kind of recognizes what's going on here. Cody said that he doesn't want to have to nominate anyone else, and obviously, I think Kevin gets that. We already know that Cody probably wanted KAYSAR and Janelle on the block in the first place, so he's already sort of had to go through a lot of different options. Nicole probably would have been a replacement nominee. No real reason to worry about that. Kevin can at least maybe, I don't think he can take a breath here, because you don't know what's going to happen in the Big Brother house. Like, you're probably just like, all the time.
Yeah, and now is, like you said at the beginning of the video, now is the time that everyone's going to have to really put on their game hats and start campaigning and seeing where people land. And it's going to be interesting to see where people land on these two.
Yeah, like, Keisha's the likely target. Like, if you had to ask me right now who I think is probably going to be evicted, I think it's probably going to be Keisha. But am I going to sit here and say that I am 100% confident in it? No, it's not like Keisha has like ran around the house and thrown people's stuff into the kitchen, or like, you know, is shouting curse words at people. Like, they don't despise or loathe Keisha.
No. And speaking of Keisha, KAYSAR has realized
Finally.
here that saving Keisha and throwing himself and everyone else on the fire here to save her is kind of out the door in some ways. Because the thing he's really realized is that Memphis just doesn't care that much about Keisha to put his own game on the line to save her. And why should he at this point? I mean, we all want to see Keisha stick around, but I also want to see Kevin stick around.
Yeah.
And Memphis isn't really a target. He's just not on the board right now. So why does he need to put himself on the board?
KAYSAR in his head when he plays Big Brother, I think KAYSAR envisions himself in like a full suit of like chainmail armor that he needs to like go into different castles and slay dragons, not in like the Coach from Survivor sort of way, but like the actual sort of, well, actually, is there an actual way of slaying dragons? Anyway, that's neither here nor there.
It's just the super nerdy way, and we're nerds, so, you know, this is where our references are going to go all season, guys.
Clearly. So, but finally, KAYSAR has now realized, oh, actually, it's probably not a good idea to, like, have my sword and my armor at the ready every single second of the game, because people are going to be like, why are you ready to go fight some dragons? There are no dragons here right now, KAYSAR. Just chill.
Yeah, I wonder if a lot of this is just coming from KAYSAR just feeling a need to prove that he deserves to be there, and that he has just been eliminated at times for all, like, very early, or much earlier than I'm sure he wanted. I know he wants to win, but I think he's just coming in and playing too hard and playing all the angles too fast, and it's going to bite him. I am really scared that we are going to lose KAYSAR, like, next week or the week after. Like, he needs to calm it down. He had a really good opportunity after winning that safety to lay low, and he just hasn't. And I think it's just, he's just going to end up being that person. Everyone's like, listen, nobody's going to be upset by this because he's acting really paranoid. He's playing too much game too fast. Like, let's just get him out. Nobody's going to be bothered by it except all of us.
The good news is that it seems as though he has realized the error of his ways.
Yeah.
However, as we know from watching a lot of Big Brother, someone will say something and be like, oh, that makes total sense. And then the next morning, they will wake up and forget everything they said the night before and be a disaster.
Sure. This house breeds paranoia.
Yeah. So hopefully KAYSAR can just keep it together, KAYSAR. We want to see you in the game, KAYSAR. Let's get, though, to the part of this video that will probably have people screaming, what? The most, because on the surface, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense, but maybe it does when you think about it more. This is a good discussion.
Yeah.
Okay, so KAYSAR and Janelle have sort of talked a little bit about potential targets moving forward, and KAYSAR is actually interested in the idea of targeting David of all people. And this is David, the guy who has gone around and acts like he doesn't know what the power of Veto does, even though this is an All-Star season. But KAYSAR seems to think that, you know, David's obviously smarter than he lets on, which he is, but there is a rationale here that I find hilarious, and that is that he beat Ian in chess. Therefore, David is, I think Matt Hoffman referred to himself as a diabolical super genius. So David, apparently, though, in KAYSAR's mind, is a diabolical super genius who can defeat anyone in chess and will eventually, like, conquer the world using his brain.
Yeah, and I mean, KAYSAR's not wrong. David is smarter than he's letting on. So it's good on KAYSAR for being perceptive that David is also very smart and very perceptive. So, and it, in some ways, I mean, makes a little bit of sense. We were talking about this before we went on.
Yeah.
The idea that maybe Janelle and KAYSAR don't want to just straight out go for Cody next week if they win, because then they've just drawn the line in the sand. If they don't do that, then I mean, it's really early in the game. If they don't do that, then it kind of leaves it open to be like, hey, no hard feelings, we're moving on to something else. So that by the, you know, a week in the game, a lot changes. They can take that time to build a better bridge with Cody, and things change.
it's going to be an
if KAYSAR can just calm down.
Yeah, like the biggest thing they need to do is just focus on building relationships with a lot of different people and try to form some larger alliances, because that's really the way that's going to keep them safe in the long term. I mean, there is a school of thought of, okay, maybe if you do try to get rid of Cody, maybe some numbers around him will splinter in all direction. But I understand also the idea of, oh, maybe we can find a way to work with Cody and Tyler and this group in the long run, and maybe this is sort of a way to find a way that you're not hurting your own direct numbers, but you're also not hurting these people who you might want to work with. It's just, they need to read the room, because if they are in a situation where getting rid of Cody is their only sort of path forward and they sort of chicken out on it, then it's gonna be really, really bad for them, and then everybody on the internet will clown them, and then we will end up having to clown them. And I don't want to have to clown KAYSAR and Janelle. Don't make me.
So there's a little bit of campaigning going on already. Kevin has started to campaign to Ian, which I don't know why Kevin keeps going back to Ian over and over again. He must really like him, but Ian has kind of made it clear that he's not making any concrete decisions about anything until he has all the information, and the veto ceremony hasn't happened yet. So while I'm sure Ian is probably thinking, well, Enzo probably won't use the veto, he doesn't know for sure until it happens. So he was just kind of like, yeah, I'm gonna wait until the veto ceremony to make my decision. So that's where that lands, and it's probably not what Kevin wanted to hear, but at least it's honest.
I am looking forward to the day where I want something in my life as badly as Kevin wants an alliance with Ian and Big Brother 22.
Right?
Like, this guy is basically like metaphorically being the John Cusack in Say Anything to Ian. He is like showing up with the boombox over his head all of the time. Ian, Kevin just wants your appreciation so badly. It's sort of like he's got something kind of going with Nicole A, with Davon, and, you know, Davon and Bailey are close, so Bailey's more or less on his side, and he wants Ian, but I think Ian is still kind of, he's got this Million Club thing with Nicole F.
It's also really early still. It's only day 5, so, and Ian is smart enough to know that he is going to need to take somebody who's a really sort of big threat player to the end, and that, unfortunately, isn't Kevin. Like, he doesn't need to put himself out there yet until he knows sort of where everybody else is falling. There is a reason why Ian won.
I think if you're Ian, the best case scenario here is just stay close to Kevin and make Kevin feel like you do appreciate him and you want to work with him.
That is not really happening that much.
He needs to do better at this, but he needs he really needs to just find a way to make things kind of solidified with Kevin, but not put himself in a position where he goes opposite Nicole F's numbers, and just give himself options so that if Kevin is there closer to the end still, and he realizes at that point he doesn't need Nicole F anymore for whatever reason, he will have other numbers, but you have to be careful with this if you're in. But I do think eventually Kevin may feel like, you know what, I have come to you a million times and you have given me these like not great answers a million times, so sayonara, I'm done with it.
Yeah, and it's getting close to that time already. I mean, he's on the block, so stop going to the dry well and move on to somebody else. There's lots of people in the house. No one has left.
Yeah, I really, Kevin's probably going to try to diversify his options. I think he'll go to a lot of different people. So hopefully we'll see a lot of that today. I think today is going to be a good campaign day. All right, so now we move into the latest chapter of Podcast Gate, the ongoing saga.
So apparently Nicole A is upset that Nicole F is talking bad about her co-host, and it's a weird spot because I kind of like Nicole A is stuck in a really weird spot.
Yeah,
obviously she's going to want to stand up for her co-host. I think, I said this in the other video, I think that she knows something of how he has spoken about Nicole F. or how he had felt about Nicole F. I don't think Nicole A. is completely in the dark. She may not know the extent of it. She might. I don't know. But I don't think she's just completely clueless, has no idea. How dare you? So it was very interesting to see where she was going to fall on this, if she was kind of be like, yeah, I don't like what he said, but we're trying to move on. Or if she was going to do this, where she was going to get really upset about Nicole F. saying anything bad about her co-host. And I'm not going to pretend to be like the biggest Nicole F. fan or anything, but I understand why she's upset that someone was going on a podcast and, pulling her apart. That stinks.
It's such a weird, complicated situation because it is sort of like Nicole F. has beef with this person over things that were said many years before Nicole A. even enters the picture, and then
Right.
Nicole A. gets sort of guilt by association for something that she really didn't even do. And yeah, I think she's aware of some of his feelings about Nicole F. to some extent. I don't think she probably knows every single thing that has ever been said or anything like that. And I think Nicole A., at the very least, she's sort of cognizant enough that she can vent to us on the live feeds, because she did this at like really ungodly hours of the night by herself. If she can separate that conversation from the game, good for her. She just can't let her feelings towards Nicole F. She can't go after Nicole F. just because Nicole F. doesn't like her co-host, and I think she has to keep that perspective.
And I think Nicole A. is in kind of a tough spot too, because if Nicole F. is trashing her co-host, and Nicole A. is on the show obviously to win the money and play the game and all that stuff, but she is also going to be promoting her podcast. She has. It was in the opening sequence. That is what she is doing. So she can't be on this show letting her co-host get trashed, because then it's going to become an association with her where Nicole F. is creating this, her perspective of what has happened and how she felt about what they said about her, and that it's not okay. And now Nicole A.'s wagon is hitched to this. So now she's in a position that if she doesn't, defend her co-host, then either she's in just such a crappy position, because then she's letting him go down with the ship by himself, or she's gonna go and be his champion so that the podcast can kind of be saved a little bit. Because it's not a great look that this was happening in the first place. Now Nicole F. has allowed everybody that's watching the show to know that it happened. Nicole A. had no choice but to really defend. It's just where she is. This is also her podcast that she's on.
This is going to be an ongoing story.
Yes, it is.
I don't think it's going to be a big deal over the next few days. I could be wrong. It's just...
I think it is, actually.
Okay.
I think this is actually going to blow up after now seeing just how mad Nicole Anthony really is about this. I can see it sparking off in the next few days.
It's going to depend on the conversation. But if it comes up, I could see it certainly blowing up. But I think it for sure is going to have an impact at some point. And... okay, so before we go, we'll give a quick Ian update, because we have been concerned about Ian. He hasn't had his backyard. He's kind of struggling. They did give the house guests some new games last night. They gave backgammon, a few other things, so they have something more to do, which is good when you don't really have a backyard, and they haven't had that. We'll see how much it happens. There's no huge game context here, but it just made me happy, because it's like, oh, you guys are looking after Ian. He's having a hard time.
Yeah, and I think it will, in the game context, help Ian a lot to be able to sort of have something else to focus on during that time. And they did show him playing backgammon in his package with his girlfriend. So, this is something that he enjoys that could help him. It's good. It helps him be a little more evened out in the playing field here, where he has a focus, and I like that.
Finally, learn people's names, everyone. Tyler's name is not Taylor. I know that's just funny to me. Do your research. You knew Tyler was going to be on this season.
And I mean, yeah, you should know them by now. It is day 5. I understand there's a lot of people in the house, but come on.
I know. All right. Well, what do you guys think is going to happen campaign-wise today? Let us know all your thoughts on this video and the game in the house in the comments. And if you do like this discussion, give us a like, subscribe, and you can support us further by checking those links to the store, to our Patreon, and we'll see you here next time.